All right, Jake. So I'm glad to have you here today. Can you tell me first a little bit about the history of Pettit Pastures, how you guys got started and where you are today?
Yeah, so my dad and I started around 2012. Um, we were both working in the construction industry and uh, did a lot of work in food processing plants. And that kind of got me to thinking a lot more about the food and the quality of food that we eat and that we consume. Um, my dad was looking to retire from the industry, and he had grown up on a dairy farm and had been a dairy farmer until the early 80s. And he got out of it during the farm crisis back then. And so he would wanted to get back into animal agriculture when he retired. And I started reading a little bit more about regenerative agriculture and what you could do with that. And so we decided to try the grass-fed thing, and just it's kind of grown from there. It's been interesting. He was a little bit skeptical of some of the stuff at first, having the conventional agriculture background when we first started. It's been really interesting to see him kind of buy in and see how all the regenerative stuff can work as we've come along.
So I see online now, obviously you talked about the processing a little bit, the food processing, but like I saw that the shift as well in agriculture generally had
Yeah.
upset you guys, was like the kind of the way that you would put it.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that and why that brought you more towards the regenerative ag that you're currently doing?
Sure. Well, we're in Minnesota here, and so it's corn and soybeans kind of all over the place, and you can see just the corn soybean rotation with the monocultures, and it's just more and more chemical fertilizers, more and more uh, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides going on everything, and that the activity in the soil just going down and down, and the nutrient density in the food going down. And then even when with meat, then you're feeding your cattle and chickens and pigs with that same corn and soy, and it's just not a lot of nutrients, not a lot of healthiness to the food. And then on top of that, you see all the destructive side effects of the conventional practices on the land. Manure runoff from the feedlots and stuff. When you raise cattle on grass, that manure becomes an asset to the environment and to the soil because it's not concentrated, and you're moving them all the time. And the more you do it, you just really start to see that everything in nature, is kind of there for a reason, and it all works together and it all builds on each other. And anytime you pull one thing out, because it may seem easier, you're going to end up creating more and more problems down the line. So you just got to kind of, work with things. And we found when you do have a problem, try to look at nature and what's, what happens in nature, and try to mimic that as close as you can. And that seems to work the best. In the conventional food system, it just seems to be the opposite. If there's a problem, add this chemical or this product or this thing to it, rather than trying to figure everything out as a whole.
So to that effect, what are consumers buying when they purchase products from Pettit Pastures or another American GrassFed Association certified producer?
Yeah. So, obviously, first and foremost, they're buying the product that they get, right, which is nutrient dense, healthy food that they can trust to serve their families. But on top of that, you're supporting the local community. Most grass-fed operations are, quite a bit smaller than the regular ones, and they're spending money in their communities either through processing. We use a local processor in town, so we run a lot of business through them every year. We go and buy our stuff from the hardware stores, and end up helping neighbors on other farms. They help us, that kind of stuff. So you're really helping support the agriculture and the rural community in your area or your state. And you have the peace of mind of knowing that that meat that you're putting on your plate isn't at the expense or the detriment of the environment out there. A lot of studies now are showing that grass-fed beef can be either a net neutral or even a carbon saving product. If you're adding carbon to the soil and restoring it, which most of the soils around us for sure need a ton of improvement. So it's really you're getting a whole lot more with that piece of meat than you are when you buy something at the grocery store when you don't know if it was produced in your state or even your country.
And I guess it takes on a certain meaning for you to raise meat in that way.
Yeah, it does. We've always been an outdoors family, hunting and fishing, and so we care about the environment a ton, and to be able to see where you can do something that not only produces really nutrient dense, healthy food, but also helps to improve the water cycle, helps to improve the soil, the air quality, in an industry that gets a bad reputation, livestock production. So it is.
So how does now? I know like a lot of words tend to become watered down after people get access to them in regulatory settings, such as organic. It has become so watered down over the years. Now the new one seems to be grass-fed, and I know that the definitions are kind of more lenient than our certification is. Can you talk a little bit about like why your cows are different than just the typical grass-fed you might see in the store?
Yeah, absolutely. So the USDA kind of deregulated the term grass-fed a few years ago, and now any producer can label anything they want grass-fed as long as they fill out a form and send it in. So you could say my beef is grass-fed, but I still feed it grain. That's obviously not grass-fed, but under the USDA regulations, that would be allowed. With the AGA, the strict guidelines, just obviously first and foremost, no grain, no glyphosate used on the property, and they have the regulations on the animals trying to be out in pasture as much as possible, and then having an inspector come out to the farm as well and check on things, which is above and beyond any other certification we could have. A lot of our customers are in the Twin Cities metro area, and they might not have that much of an agriculture background. So we feel that putting the American Grass-Fed label on our stuff is a peace of mind for anyone who doesn't really feel comfortable being able to investigate on their own the practices of the farmer, to be able to feel like they're getting what that farmer says they're getting. The AGA was the strictest standard that we could find, and we liked that a lot, and thought that it really gives people a peace of mind. We obviously always encourage any of our customers to come out to the farm and see what we're doing, but for some people that's just not practical or not really in their comfort zone. And so the American Grass-Fed label is there for them. And I always tell people, if you wonder exactly what it is, you can go on the American Grass-Fed Association's website and pull it up and see what the standards are, and know when you're buying beef from us that all those are met.
What response do you get out of your customers with your product? And especially since 2012, has the landscape changed for you dramatically? Has it become easier?
It is. Yeah. I mean, it has. I've seen the grass-fed demand just grow and grow year over year. And then obviously this year, when COVID hit, it really, people really started looking at what they were eating. People have a little more time at home than they've had in the past. And I think they're doing some more cooking and really just thinking more about, what they're putting into their bodies. How much of that will stick after COVID goes away, I'm not sure, but the general overall trend has been for people to be a little more conscious about what they're eating, and grass fed, when done correctly, people can buy a steak that's just as good or better than that corn-fed steak they had, and they can feel better about it for themselves. So I think that's a trend that's just going to continue.
So, Jake, I think the next very important question is, how can we buy your steak? Now, I know you're limited to Minnesota, but if we do live in Minnesota, what is the best process we could follow?
Yeah, so we're not technically limited to Minnesota. All our stuff is USDA processed, but we don't ship. So, yeah, basically, you're right. We do limit ourselves to Minnesota, but yeah, you can go onto our website at www.pettitpastures.com. Pettit is Pettit. And we have a full online store there.
So the USDA processing, now I hear this from, like, as I keep talking, I'm new into American grass-fed. I've come from groups that do, like, support small agriculture, but not so much in American grass-fed. So I'm learning the hurdles from the farmer side instead of the communities that are affected by industrial ag. And I see that one is if you don't get it USDA processed, you can't sell it out of state. So that's
right.
a problem for some farmers. Now, if you can't get it to that USDA processing plant, is that a challenge in a lot of areas to find processing?
It is. We're lucky here in Minnesota. Minnesota's had a good hunting culture, and our state laws, unlike some other state laws, they'll allow a processor to process like wild game. You have to do it on different days and stuff, but in the same facility. And so that kept more small processors here in Minnesota open and going. And now, of course, with the local food movement taking off, they're really busy right now. Our biggest challenge is just scheduling, getting enough processing dates with our processor. We're lucky. We have a processor fairly close. I went to school with the boys of the owner, and so that helps. But we book everything a year out, and then when we do get another big customer, we pick up another restaurant or something like that. That really becomes a struggle, because you can't tell a restaurant, well, I can get you in a year, right? Which is what the processors are telling us. So you really have to juggle and try to fill the demand of all your individuals customers, as well as your retail or restaurant customers. And processing really is the biggest hang up for us.
But it seems like the more farmers that are regularly engaging in grass-fed, the easier that becomes, right? Because then you're able to set up businesses, you're able to have that infrastructure for the little guy, rather than just these vertically integrated systems that are just sucking the life out of rural America.
Absolutely, yeah. Like our processor, I mean, I know all the butchers that work there, and the people that work up front in the retail part, and they're all people that get paid a living wage. They live in the community, they support the community. And last year, our processor put on a big addition, because of how much demand there was. So as the farms grow, other businesses in town as well are growing like the processor. And, it's such a compounding effect when you can spend that money locally, and support people who are supporting the community.
So, Jake, I just want to thank you for being a good steward and doing probably the most important job in the world, which is providing nutritious food that can sustain us all and the planet. So thank you. Is there anything you want to leave the viewers with?
No, I mean, I think just that you can, the grass-fed label is something you can definitely trust. And if you're a producer out there, it's something to look into. One of the reasons that we're not organic certified, and one of the reasons is because when we worked in the food industry and saw some of the farms and the places that were certified, the large ones, we didn't feel like it was, it was living up to what it was supposed to be. And with the grass-fed label, we definitely feel that.